What's up, guys? Welcome to my Gamescast 2017, where I talk about games that I played this year. And I didn't do any in past years, but I also did not play that many quality games in years past. I would pretty much only play exclusively Pokemon. I said, you know what? I'm going to take a step back, I'm going to explore what else is out there, and let me tell you, 2017 was a really good year to decide that. So, if you're catching this on YouTube or if you're catching this on Twitch Live, I'm not going to have any kind of video feed or anything special going on. So you can feel free to alt-tab, finish your homework, you know, cook that spaghetti, whatever you want to do. Just have it in the back for a couple of minutes. I don't know how long this is going to be. I'm just going to talk about video games for as long as I want to talk about them, and how to have them sorted out. So I've got games I'm currently playing, and then after that is sorted out by systems I've played, and then after that I got a little Game of the Year top 5 that will eventually build up to. So I'm actually going to go ahead and start off with games I'm currently playing, and I'm playing for. The first one is actually Overwatch. I've been playing a borderline unhealthy amount of that. It is disgusting how much I played. I think even yesterday must have played around 5 to 6 hours. So even with work, I'm averaging at least 3 to 5 hours a day of Overwatch. Just trying to get better, doing what I'm doing, playing all these different heroes, in case you've been living under a rock for the past year and a half or whatever. Overwatch is a first-person shooter by Blizzard, pretty much a team-based effort kind of thing. There's even a huge competitive scene for it, and I enjoy everything about this game except for the actual hard-coded competitive scene built in. Outside of that, the skins are fantastic. Character backgrounds are pretty cool. I haven't checked out all of them yet, but I purchased the game for the anniversary price in May, I believe, and that's been a damn blast, since everybody I know online has at least dabbled with it, knows what it is, or plays on the regular. So I play with a lot of people on Twitter, Discord, and Tumblr, and a fair amount of people I'm friends with in real life also play that as well. So with everybody's battle nets all together, it's really easy to get a 6-stack and, you know, just kind of shoot the shit in Discord and just spend an evening like that. It's really nice. Outside of your base purchase of the game, and then if you want to get skins, you can. Outside of that, it's a completely free experience outside of what you'd normally pay for in utilities, but it beats going out to the club or, you know, spending money on expensive sporting events and whatnot. Point being, I like, this is my go-to activity when I have nothing better to do and I don't want to be watching Netflix or whatever. I usually just end up on Overwatch for the evening. So, it's fun. Outside of that, other games I'm playing, let's see. Next game I got is Enter the Gungeon, and it's really weird to try to talk about this stuff because technically, like, I had done a previous take of this that got past this, so I'm just trying to not immediately repeat what I had said before. But Enter the Gungeon is a top-down dungeon explorer, similar to Hotline Miami, just because it is by the people that actually worked on Hotline Miami. Really cool thing about this game is the price point was a meager $14.99. B, thanks to the fact that it recently got ported on Switch, and that's the main reason I checked it out, you have immediate co-op. You can either play it straight as you would on the normal Switch, you can dock it in and then just set it up as a controller. They coded all of that really well. Or, my favorite part, if somebody's, you know, looking over your shoulder, you got your Switch out somewhere, and somebody's like, hey, that game looks cool, you can immediately turn to them and say, hey, yeah, you want to play? And you just take out a Joy-Con and you hand it to them, and it's a really awesome option. I grew up with couch co-op, and the fact that there is not a lot of that these days is a damn shame. But Enter the Gungeon really tickles a soft spot for this, since it's not more of a, oh, I don't want to play with you anymore because I can't remember where we left off kind of thing. Each game session, a good one, will last, if you're lucky, upwards of an hour. I think some of my little more aggressive runs have lasted probably 40 minutes, 50 minutes, and then some of my shorter ones have lasted 20, but you keep going, you try to get to the top, and you got a lot of different weapons with you along the way. It's more like I'm actually actively trying to sell this game at this point, since I'm sure more people have heard of Overwatch and know what Overwatch is, as opposed to Enter the Gungeon. But really great indie title to reach the digital Switch eShop, and I am such a huge fan of it. So if you're not playing that and you're looking for something fun to do, I've streamed this one a little bit as well, and I think it's a great pick-me-up for that price. So onwards to next games I'm playing. This one, a lot of my in-real-life friends have played, and they are very, very, very big fans of it. I actually played Okami on PlayStation 2 pretty generous chunk of it, and then I just lost interest. I really couldn't figure out what it was. I had also bought a copy on the PlayStation 3, both a digital one and a physical one. And now, I bought the digital one first when it was on a flash sale, and then I bought the physical copy because A, I wanted the physical copy, and B, I thought it would look great on my shelf. So I imported it at a pretty decent price, and little did I know that all the physical copy did was install the digital copy on your system. So that was kind of pointless, but again, what can you do? So I didn't give this game the attention that I feel like it deserved when it first came out. And then even on its Wii port, I had borrowed it from a friend and attempted to play it a little bit, and it didn't hold my interest all 3 times all the way through. I started out being enthralled with it, and it wasn't the game itself that didn't hold my interest, because let me tell you, I'm a sucker for good graphics. Let me start by saying, in terms of graphics department, not like, oh wow, 1080p, all this nonsense. In terms of, I guess, artistic direction, there's a few other games in my games that I've played this year that actually fall in this category. It could be extremely low res to hell, but if you do something unique with it, then I'm gonna love it. In terms of what you've done with your artistic direction, I think is a good way to put it. Okami is pretty much all about that. Literally, your artistic direction drives you through the game with a paintbrush. So a lot of people compare this to Twilight Princess, and it's basically Legend of Zelda, and you're a fucking dog. And you know what? As far as I'm getting into it, it's kind of easy to see that similarity, but I prefer to keep them separate, since it does have its own things that distinctly set it apart. And I'm really not saying too much more that anybody else hasn't already said, since there's been, what, how many ports of this game? This is the 4th port of this game. PS2, PS3, Wii, and PS4 is the one I'm recently checking it out on. So I figured, you know, it looked the best, and it does. And I'm having a lot of fun playing this one with my girlfriend, since she's played it through pretty recently, and she's a pretty good backseat gamer, in which where if I get lost, she'll be like, oh, you can go that way, or, oh, don't forget to grab that thing if I'm about to leave an area or do something stupid. She'll point it out. She won't actively be like, oh, you're gonna hate this next part, or, oh, when your last playthrough did X do this, or whatever, and it's just like, nope. No, I've got somebody nice next to me playing through it the whole time, so having some good fun with this one. Outside of that, I actually didn't touch too much on this one, but I'm also playing the Kingdom Hearts mobile game a lot. I figured I would throw that in there, since I sometimes spend the amount of time on this than I would a regular console or portable handheld game. And then, as always, we do have an active party in our Discord, in case anybody on Twitch is catching this on video on demand, or anybody on YouTube is, you know, watching this on demand and wasn't aware of that fact. And since I'm well aware the people in our Discord played a lot. So, onwards to, what do I have next? This is going to be really informal, since I haven't done a podcast type thing in years. So this is PS4 games that I have played at some point in time this year. That might not necessarily be from this year. Let me see. So the next one, I technically did not play, but I was there when it was played. I was about as close as you can get to playing it without actually playing it, and that was Journey. I had owned 2 copies of this game as well, since digital only. No, that's not true. I think there was a physical release. Don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure I remember seeing that at GameStop at one point, though. But I didn't check it out in any of its iterations until my previously mentioned significant other came over, noticed it in my library, and noticed that I didn't have any trophies for it. And she was like, you know, this is actually probably one of my top 5 favorite games to come back to and just play when I need to chill out. If I have a migraine or whatever, I'll just turn it on and I'll jump into it for a bit. I played it through, you know, 5, 6, 7 times or something like that. I was like, holy crap. Well, here's a freaking idea that I have. I'm going to get stoned off my ass, and I'm going to watch you play this. How long do you think it's going to take you to get through it? And she's like, first run, maybe about an hour, hour and a half. I was like, that sounds like an excellent time. So we did it. As soon as she couldn't figure out what I was babbling about, she just loaded up and started playing it. And gorgeous game. I think the music was probably the thing that pulled me in the most, since it doesn't have too much of a hard-based plot to it. You kind of have to pay attention to kind of pull context-sensitive clues from what's going on around you in order to piece everything together. But in reality, you can just kind of be looking at the dude, and if you have a vague sense of direction, and that's my main problem with games. I have to have a mini-map. I hate being in sandboxes and not knowing what I'm supposed to do. So the lack of a map, the lack of, you know, objectives, all this stuff, it's a big crutch for me, because outside of that, I find it very hard to immerse myself. And then, you know, when there's trophies attached to it too, I'm just like, well, what's the best roadmap to do this? And then I find myself stopping constantly to check this trophy roadmap to try to collect these things. And, you know, on a mini map, you'd have a vague sense of direction in order to, you know, do that. Versus with Journey, you're just supposed to experience it. And it was a game that I had wanted to, but I like Okami, there would be a disconnect somewhere along the way. And Journeys happened to be right at the beginning, since I loaded it up, and I was like, I don't know where I'm going with this. And the sentence wasn't finishing itself properly. I don't know where I'm going with this. The way I finished that was, therefore, I'm not interested in. And Journey's pitches, I don't know where I'm going specifically, but that's okay. That's the entire premise of the game for the most part. And it gently tugs you where you need to go. It doesn't rail you, you know, much like a railed shooter or some other games. And I really enjoy, I think both of these games have their merits. I just can't connect myself to it, and I would happily rather backseat game with somebody that has already experienced it. So when she did play through, she got me probably like 80% of trophies on first run. So A, that was freaking awesome. B, it was a beautiful game, and it was only about, I think she really took her time with it to try to maximize all of the trophies that she could get. So it was about, what, 2 hours? Something like that. Really short, really cool. I know it's from X amount of time ago. A lot of these are going to be. I'm late to a lot of parties when it comes to a lot of the stuff on my list. So, that being said, speaking of late to parties, I had not checked out Last of Us for a really good amount of time. And you're like, how the hell did you not check out Last of Us? Because when Last of Us released, I was working at a GameStop for the most part. And let me tell you, the last thing I wanted to do when I was working at a GameStop was come home and look at a video game. And I'm sure anybody that works at any kind of video game retailer or anything like that associated with it, that's pretty much the last thing you want to do. Like, you'll buy them, and be like, you know what, I'm going to do that when I get off work. I'm gonna sit back and unwind with all these things that I've been selling all day. And you just can't. It takes a special kind of person to sit down and say, yeah, you know what, I wanna come home and play video games after I've been selling video games all day. I couldn't do that. It was a bit hard for me. So that's why I actually didn't check it out for the longest time. And here's the thing about Last of Us as well. I didn't actually get this one spoiled for me whatsoever. So the one thing, hold on, I gotta close off this tab, otherwise it's gonna make noise sometimes. Okay, so I got Force Awakens spoiled for me within about 2 to 3 days of it coming out. Last Jedi, I got spoiled immediately the next morning. So, that being said, those two major things on the internet, that's to be expected with those. Last of Us, I don't know, working in a GameStop, or even just being on social media the way I was a lot more involved with YouTube and stuff at the time, how I did not get Last of Us spoiled. But now that I actually did not play this one as well, and I'm also extremely late to the party on this one, but I got to experience it very closely since I backseat gamed on this one as well. I was playing another game that I had already played through at the time before. Everybody knows playing the third version of a Pokemon game that 75% of the story is the same. You literally know subconsciously where you're going at that point in time. Pokemon really babies you in what direction you need to go, and especially with Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. It kind of, Rotom says, he's constantly yelling where you need to go. So it's not something I need to worry about on my playthrough, especially since I'm literally just doing it just to have the next competitive, updated iteration of a Pokemon game. So that being said, my disconnect from it was large enough to actually experience another game at the same time. So while she was kind of running around, you know, in the non-minor or the non-major plot points or whatever, I would just be playing Ultra Sun, just making headway in that. And then as soon as there'd be, you know, a little bit, as soon as I'd hear anybody talk, I'd be able to look up and just experience it. So I really didn't miss much on this game at all. If anything, this one kind of left me a big misty-eyed mess at the end of it as well. And there was a few other points. I think it was, I think Pittsburgh was a location that they went to. There was a part in the middle of Pittsburgh that I think definitely got to me, and you know, I'm pretty sure everybody that's played it through knows specifically, or at least has a pretty good idea of what I'm talking about specifically. That being said, I would love to play it through on my own. Having trouble finding the time for a lot of other games since I've already got 3 to 4 regular ones on my plate. Maybe once I get done with Okami and I get fed up with Enter the Gungeon, I'll have room for some other stuff. But for now, I'm glad when I went over to her place, I got to watch that one. So that was pretty cool. Speaking of games that either of us have already played through multiple times, she had actually not played through Transistor, I believe, to completion, or did not remember good details of it. And I think I've played this game through probably about, shit, I don't know. I think this most recent run through was probably my 4th one. And I rant and rave about this game, like, I've done it in years past, and I'll keep doing it for years to come. I really don't think there was a lot like it, and I don't think there will be for quite some time. Music was amazing. Pretty short game. Good one to platinum if you decide to get it on PS4. And then on PC, it's a pretty reasonable price as well. I think it regularly goes down below $10. I just enjoy this one so much. I'm trying to remember specific details that I haven't already described to everybody under the sun at this point. But nothing's really immediately coming to mind. I would definitely check out gameplay, see if it's your cup of tea. It's by the same people that did Bastion, if any of you remember Bastion, and I did play Bastion as well. That was a few years ago, which I won't touch base on it. I have not played their newest game yet, which, shame on me, that subdued sound was me slapping my own wrist. I played Transistor another time before I played through Pyre, but I don't even own Pyre yet, so as soon as things, you know, kind of slow down to the point where I can start playing games one by one, Pyre is definitely coming up. And that Transistor, I think I actually played through less than a month ago. So despite, you know, having that much of a recent playthrough fresh in my memory, I'm blanking hard because that was muscle memory as far as I was concerned. So, what else do I have here? I also played through, I think near the beginning of the year, I played through Kingdom Hearts 0.2 Prologue, the one with Aqua, the one that was basically like an hour or two. I can't believe I paid $60 for that, because I also wanted to watch the Kingdom Hearts mobile game cinematic that they included with it, but I had no interest in Dream Drop Distance whatsoever. I think that's one I'm probably gonna have to watch a playthrough of, since when I played it, I wasn't a big fan of it. So yeah, I paid $60 for a tech demo of Kingdom Hearts 3, but I liked it. I think I probably could have waited, but I really like Kingdom Hearts in general. So 0.2, gorgeous. There's not really too much to talk about since it's pretty short on the substance. And if I were to talk about a lot of it, it would probably discourage people from playing it, since I could basically say, you know, maybe 3 sentences and kind of cover the entire thing. So I don't want to do that. If you can borrow it from a friend, I would say do that, since it's not really worth spending any more money on. If you're looking to just check out that, don't spend $60 on it like I did. But definitely do try to check it out at some point. I thought it was great. So outside of that, another game I did start playing, but did not finish as well, unfortunately, was Life is Strange Before the Storm. I don't really remember specifically what happened with this one. I spent a night playing it, and then I think I forgot to come back to it. Since we started playing something else, or I bought something on the Switch or something. I made sure my Switch got a decent amount of use, and I think that might have pulled away from Life is Strange. But all 3 episodes are out now finally. I did buy the season pass. So that being said, I'll download the next 2 episodes and probably play those through. I think that'll probably be my next one after Okami. And we'll just kind of go from there. Since Life is Strange, if that gets spoiled for me, then that's gonna be kind of the unfortunate one. If Okami gets spoiled for me, then it's like, oh, well, whatever. That I definitely could have seen that coming. So, that being said, I didn't play a lot of PS4 games this year, but those are the ones I did play that did not make it to my top 5 list. So I'll immediately jump into my Switch games that I played this year. I'm gonna actually start with Severed, since this was a port of I believe, a PS Vita game. And did I play Guacamelee? I think I played Guacamelee last year, and that's why I didn't add it to the list. But the reason I'm bringing up Guacamelee, it's from Drinkbox Studios, the same company that made Guacamelee, so this is their next game. It's pretty cool first person. It's kind of like if Fruit Ninja was a dungeon crawler, and it's a first person one, and you also get an upgrade system on it too. It seemed pretty natural that it would get ported to Switch. My one kind of drawback to it is if you don't have a good grip on your console, if you have kind of small hands, your hands will get sore holding the tablet for an extended period of time. Just because you do have to one-hand the tablet for quite a bit. And you can't really put it on your TV because you need a touchscreen. So your only option is the handheld if you can put it on like a dock or something. Not really like a dock, but like a T-stand kind of thing, like on your desk or whatever. That'd probably be a good way to do it. That was my one main complaint about it. The game itself was so good that my hand got tired from trying to play very extended sittings of it because my wrist is weak and I'm a limp-wristed fairy boy. So that being said, this one was another cheap title, and I knew I did want to check this one out since it finally did get ported to the Switch. This game is probably the most I've used my touchscreen on my Switch. I think probably 95% of my touchscreen usage, the other 5% belonging to when I punched in my 2 Wi-Fi passwords since I've owned the freaking system. Outside of everything else has been hacking, slashing. I'm a sucker for upgrade trees, and this one had 3 of them, so that was pretty nice. That being said, story was pretty good. Music was also pretty good. I wasn't as wowed as I was with Guacamelee, but the gameplay was pretty interesting. One would say it probably gets stale kind of fast, and the puzzles in the dungeon weren't particularly hard either. That being said, I still wouldn't let it discourage you from at least checking out the gameplay of it. If you check it out and you're like, you know what, that's probably not for me, I totally understand. That's kind of a whatever thing. Outside of that, I think the graphics look, they have a very... Drinkbox has a distinct art style for both Guacamelee and Severed, and that everything is very... there's not a lot of shading going on with it, and it's... I'm trying to find the specific words for this. The color palettes are very limited, but very hard and very good uses of them, I think is a good way to use it. Outside of that, this one was kind of a short playthrough as well. I think less than 15 hours. But I would potentially play it again. I'm having trouble remembering specific details about it. And I actually got interrupted on this one for a different game, which I'll get at in a little bit, but another game released at the same time as this one, and I got pulled away from this one, so that's why I don't remember it as a coherent playthrough. I actually put this one down for about a month when another one of these games released. That being said, I thought this one was pretty awesome, and was definitely appropriate priced. Slightly unlike this next game I'm going to jump into, which I had not checked out any iterations of this game up until... I think it was, what was it? I took a company trip to Whistler, Canada, I think in July. And I had bought my Switch, I'd gotten my Switch shipped like probably the week before I went out on it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get something digital, something cool to check out. And I was like, what haven't I checked out? So I asked Twitter, hey, what's some cool stuff I can buy right now? And somebody suggested Cave Story to me. And I hadn't played it on... I don't remember where its first iteration was. I do remember it got a 3DS port, which very appropriate for it as well. But I finally checked out Cave Story Plus on Switch, and I played through that one actually quite a number of times to try to get everything. I think I ended up getting stuck on my 3rd run-through, unfortunately, trying to do... I think it was literally a hell final level is what it was. I'm not even exaggerating. It was just straight, like, literally the level was hell. Did I ever beat it? I don't think I did. I think I watched videos of people, like, trying to be able to beat it, and I couldn't. That shit was hard. That shit was so hard. Beyond that, though, I think it was pretty well written. I can see why people got reminded by Undertale, or people... What is it? People who played Undertale thought of this game, or vice versa, whatever. You know, the whole 8-bit going on, and I guess to an extent the characters as well. But this one's kind of a Metroidvania kind of thing, where you're just exploring two-dimensional dungeon. I've been playing a lot of dungeon games lately. That being said, you got your guns, very similar to... I guess it is kind of like Enter the Gungeon with the story, in that you do have your different weapons you can grab. I don't know. I'm trying to think of specific things to play this one, because I'm more remembering the trip associated with this game, since it was a bit of a drive to and from Canada, so I got some really good playtime from location to location. Not really a lot going on this one. I didn't like the price tag on it. I felt like what did I pay? I think I paid $34.99 for this game, and I honestly didn't get that much replay value out of it. If it was like $10 to $15 cheaper, yeah, that actually would have been a pretty good price for it. That being said, I did still enjoy it. I just think personally I overpaid a little bit for it. Enjoyed it all the same. Definitely check this one out on a sale, or even check out a Let's Play of it, since that last level can be a bit of a bitch, the one specifically after the last boss. Outside of that, I don't think I have much else to say about Cave Story, but there are a few other games I bought on Switch that I'm very excited to talk about. And this one's going to be, I guess, a little bit moot, since, you know what, everybody had this one on Wii U. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe actually finally was something that I checked out extensively, since the ability to play Mario Kart in that high of resolution, and much like Enter the Gungeon, actually be able to pull off a Joy-Con, hand it to somebody else. It's a little awkward to race with the Joy-Cons, but it is definitely very viable for people that don't have very large hands. I have a friend who is unfortunately about a foot or so taller than me. He's got huge hands, so like holding one of these things, it looks like he's holding a pen. It's very difficult for him to play. That being said, it's another couch co-op game for the Switch that I'm really happy to have on there, and I almost bought this one physically, and I decided, you know what, I'm gonna pick up digital, because I hate the idea of not being able to bring this one with me anywhere I go. And the one thing I do miss about this game, what is it? They took out fire hopping from Wii U to Deluxe, which is a little bit different to try to relearn how to play it. I think I actually ended up switching carts specifically because of that. But outside of that, I've done everything up to 150. I don't feel like doing mirror again, and 200 scares the shit out of me. But I had done 150 and mirror on the Wii U that I had left at my ex's back in like 2014, and I just never really got the motivation to do it again. But honestly, Mario Kart doesn't have a lot of unlockables. It's literally just more carts. And Mario Kart 8 already comes with all the characters unlocked, so there's not as much of a motivation to just immediately get into it and unlock everybody, since it's already there. You just pick it up, you start playing when you got a lot of friends around. That being said, I do have the Jackbox series on the list here in terms of things that I did pick up. But that one is really, you know, you're going to have fun with Jackbox. There's not really a lot of merit to that one. It's a lot of party games you play on your smartphone. That being said, I can mobile tether my phone's Wi-Fi, or my phone's network, to my Switch, so I can play Jackbox anywhere I want to go. And then, what was I going here? Point being, I like having a lot of co-op games on my Switch. I do like the idea of being able to play stuff by myself. But a portable next-generation console, where there's not really much in me to say, oh, I don't own that game, or oh, I don't have an extra controller, or blah, 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 blah. You got it, you're good to go. The damn thing even has a kickstand on the back. And I think I have a 128 gigabyte memory card in it, too, so I can just keep adding. So Enter the Gungeon, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and Jackboxes are all pretty good things I have on there as well that cooperate well with it. But to move on to a single-player game that I did enjoy this year for it, I actually picked this one up on sale, and this one is Shantae Half Genie Hero. And this one, I had not checked out any Shantae games in the series as well before this release. But I saw it was on sale on eShop for $14.99, I think, at the time, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna check it out. And it also had DLC with it, which was Risky's Revenge, I believe, which was you play through the game again, but from the villain's viewpoint instead of the protagonist's viewpoint. And this one was a lot of fun. There was, you know, you get your transforming. It's a platformer, operates vaguely similar to trying to remember some other stuff, but honestly, it's a platformer. It's a side-scrolling platformer. And this one had some good music, got some good bosses. I really like the art style in it too. I think that was the thing that drew me in the most. Just the design of everything and the way everything looked, artistically speaking. And on top of this is a jam from this one. Shantae, I think, was also during another busy period in my life, so I unfortunately don't remember as many key details about this. But most of these, like, non-AAA titles that I've purchased on the Switch have all been, with the exception of Cave Story, 20 bucks or less, and things that I would highly recommend to anybody looking for anything to pick up on the Switch, you know, if you're looking for something to branch out on. Especially because the DLC for this was only, I think, an extra $10. And Shantae itself was $15 when I got it. I think the regular price of it is $20. So 30 bucks for a game that I think got me, I want to say, like, what, 15, 17 hours of playtime in all? Not bad. Not bad. I really did enjoy that one a lot. Let's see. I got 2 other games on here for the Switch that I did purchase, but I did not enjoy as much, or I did not really have the time to play them through as much. First one being ARMS. Could not get into it. That's the one that actually came with my Switch when I got it shipped to my place. And I played maybe about an hour and a half to 2 hours of it, and I said, you know what? This game isn't really for me. I like other fighting games. I like other competitive games. The difficulty curve to me was a little unfair. I couldn't really get the hang of it. That's not to say it's a bad game. I know a lot of other people that enjoy it. I just don't think me and that game were a good fit. I'm able to pick up other competitive games, generally speaking, a little bit faster than that. But ARMS and me just didn't click. So I've kept that one on the shelf. Maybe I'll come back to it. But for now, I wasn't having anything that ARMS is selling to me. So the other one I have in here that I actually had the exact opposite problem with was Pokken DX. Because I had already played Pokken Tournament on the Wii U very extensively. And the fact that I couldn't port any of that existing data over was a bit rough. I'd played it for, I think, maybe a month and a half or 2 fairly regularly as soon as I'd get off work. And then the idea of having to play it through again for extra unlockables. And then on top of that, there's not a lot of people that I know personally that play it as well. That one is another one where you can actually grab another controller and play it through with somebody straight up on the Switch with you, which is also kind of another reason I picked it up as well. But when you don't have any available candidates to play it with you, it turns into more of a just in case kind of thing. Since I have a few mains, I like Charizard, and Garchomp's pretty fun as well. But outside of that, like, without anybody else to play with it, or any reason to play it through again, there's little to no motivation for me to grab it and sit down with it all the way from start to finish again. I do have this one on a physical copy, though, and I have heard that homebrew, if it is a thing, there was people that were working on entry points using Pokken DX, so I'm going to hang on to that one for a little bit. Outside of that, I think that's pretty much all of the Switch games that I have on here that did not make it to my top 5, so I'm pretty much going to jump onto the 3DS section, which, no surprise to anybody, has only one game on it, which is one I had spoken about previously, which is Pokemon Ultra Sun. So, not a lot to talk about on this one. It's the next competitive, or it's the next iteration of the Pokemon series. It's the 3rd version, if you will. And it was, functionally speaking, probably 80 to 85% the same game. You had alternate forms of the cover legendaries, basically, and then both of those guys, they kind of pulled a Black-White 2, in that they merged with Necrozma and then got another Mega as well. So a couple of new Z moves. There was 3 new Ultra Beasts. No. Poipo was an Ultra Beast, I think. Okay, that sounds about right. So, 1 Ultra Beast that evolved, 2 other Ultra Beasts besides that, and then an unreleased mythical Pokemon, which will be pretty exciting when that one comes out and we get to play around with it. But outside of that, you know, Sun was fun, but the fact that Sun came out the year prior and then we got a new version like a year later, that's a bit rough for me to go through the same game again and be as enthused with it as I was with the original iteration of it. So, bit rough to get through that one. I enjoyed it. I technically had different mons that I did on the other run, but I mean it's the 3rd version, and it coming so soon from the other one, I wasn't as attached to it as I would have liked to have been. If I will give Gen 7 a silver lining, it did spawn my favorite Pokemon, Silvally, so that's really all that one's got going for it. Outside of that, we're gonna jump into the Game of the Year session for me, which I didn't actually play enough to justify anything beyond a top 5, and let me tell you, number 2 and number 1, there's gonna be some fighting words with me between them, because those two personally flip-flop on a moment's notice between each other. But I think where I have them and why I have them where they are is pretty alright. So we're gonna jump immediately into it. At number 5, I actually have Cuphead. I checked this one out on PC because I don't own an Xbox One. And wow, I was waiting for Cuphead for such a long time. I knew this game was going to be hard. It was going to be pretty brutal according to what reviewers were talking about. But I'm a huge sucker for artistic direction. And, you know, the side-scrolling platforming shooting thing was basically just like Mega Man set in the 1930s. And the fact that it told the story with the co-op... with co-op in mind, because it said Cuphead and Mugman. You could play it through alone, don't get me wrong. It was quite a bit harder when you played it through alone. But there's a lot of, you know, the reviving mechanic when you played it through with the second player. And then just having somebody else there to share your frustration and to also keep your morale up with you. It was a very satisfying kind of difficult, since the bosses were not really unfair. You would learn their patterns. And anytime you lost, it was because you were bad and you were not, you were not getting the drift of what needed to be done. And it's very much like Enter the Gungeon in that fact, where everything has these preset patterns. And, you know, it's basic, it's bullet hell in some portions. There's a lot of different ways to play this game as well. In terms of the platforming portions, there's the run and gun portions, there's the straight up boss levels. And then I think the second to last boss had... fun little twist to it with the game board as well. But outside of that, you can hear the music. It's that everything about the time era that this game was based on. You know, I'm gonna say basically everything. I'm gonna be a broken record in that aspect in terms of what reviewers have said about it. I loved it. It hit all of the right nooks and crannies for me that I wanted in a run and gun game. With the addition of the couch co-op that I have been specifically ranting and raving about this entire podcast. And I did play it with my girlfriend at the time, and we're both pretty decent at it. I ended up finishing up that playthrough alone, since I got kind of curious and I wanted to get all the way through. That being said, if you're very good at video games, it can be a pretty short game. But because I'm not that good at video games, I'm decent at run and gun platformers at best. The Dragon definitely threw me for a loop there. I think I got through this one in about 15-20 hours. Cannot even begin to counting how many times I died throughout that whole portion. But outside of that, I really enjoyed it. I don't think it was Game of the Year material, but I definitely think it was worth a top 5 consideration here, which is why I actually clocked this one in at number 5. So, number 4, I got a free copy of this one from a friend. And this friend actually, I think, ended up getting it. I forgot specifically how he got it, but I got a free digital copy. And at number 4, I actually have Super Mario Odyssey. And the reason I don't have this one placed specifically much higher is I myself have not played many 3D Mario platformers. I think the only ones I have played, I think the only one I've played through all the way to finish is 64. I haven't actually played through Super Mario Sunshine, and Galaxy I got maybe about a third of the way through, and then I didn't get access to that save data anymore, so I technically never finished Galaxy. But Odyssey was the first game where I was like, you know what, I would like to give another Mario platformer a chance, and it's the flagship game of the damn Switch. Literally this thing pushes systems, and it's such a pure and wholesome game. I couldn't find a single thing about this game to complain about, except for Champions Road. Basically, you know, the same damn thing that there was in Galaxy. And the only reason I'm complaining about it is because I was bad at it, and that thing kicked my ass. But in terms of things that were actually bad about this game, could not find a single one. Could not find a single thing that I complained about. Even the kingdom, what was it? The Lunch Kingdom. I think there was a specific portion where you kept having to turn to fireballs. And the only reason I will say that I did not like that part specifically is because I kept missing my jumps. So any portion in time that I did not enjoy this game is because I was bad at it. Music was amazing. I thought the plot was pretty much simple enough. And plus there was a lot of throwbacks, especially with one particular kingdom. In the, I guess, third half. What the fuck was that? Last third of the game, I should say. Or second half. I think that's specifically what I was going for. Third half. What the hell? I'm fried out. But anyways, I did enjoy Odyssey. For one of the main reasons being, it gave you your open worldness in chunks. It did not give you an entire open world and say, okay, here's all of this, do everything here. It gave you it gave you many sandboxes that you could travel in between. And these sandboxes weren't overwhelmingly huge. Their checklists were not that big either. Just within reach for the average non 100% person to say, hey, you know what? This is actually pretty doable for me. It was very friendly. Movement-wise, there's a lot going on with it. I've seen some crazy shit on YouTube, so I started doing that. And it becomes a lot more fun once I figure out new ways to play it, and the game rewards you really well for it, too. That being said, I have not enjoyed myself with the Mario game as much as I did this one, and I think ever. 64 got pretty close, but I think Odyssey actually kind of blew past this one as soon as I got to probably the later half of the game, like probably right before the credits. This one... and the only reason I didn't rank this one higher is because I think the 3 games ahead of it definitely tickled some soft spots I have. But in terms of me not being that close to first-party Nintendo games like I am with Legend of Zelda, Star Fox, or Mario specifically, for Mario to make it onto my personal top 5, since I happen to be disconnected from it a little bit, huge compliment I can give to the franchise. And it's something that I'm proud to call number 4 on my list. So... number 3, and the only reason that this one is ahead of it, is because I actually grew up on Sonic games. So I'm sorry, Mario. I gotta give number 3 to Sonic Mania, which was the game that completely derailed my playthrough of Severed. Sonic Mania released, I believe, the night or two after I checked out, let me start over since I've been talking non-stop for like 45 minutes. I bought Severed 2 nights before Sonic Mania came out. That was a mistake, because not only when I came back to Severed did I forget where I was going, I was too busy thinking about wanting to go back and play Sonic again. Wow, this game was... where do I even start? So, if your favorite game was Sonic 3 or Sonic 3 Knuckles, or even Sonic 2, I think it was definitely closer to Sonic 3, lot of fantastic throwbacks, old and new. Even people that were a fan of the comics as well got a little bit of references in there. There's some Chaotix references. I think even the bonus stages, I think one of them specifically was from Sonic CD, if I'm not mistaken. I know the regular Blue Sphere one was from Sonic 3, and I actually kind of love those. Lot of levels, very satisfying amount of playtime. And then there was no Hyper Emerald nonsense or anything like that. You did get your stage select. And one thing I will spoil about it, it's not a major spoiler at all. It's in fact only about it's 4 levels in, 4 acts in, so not even 2 stages. The 4th boss specifically is a round of Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. And boy, if I can talk to you about Mean Bean Machine for a minute, well, I realistically don't think I could, since I can't remember that far back. But me and Mean Bean Machine are like this, and I'm crossing my fingers in person because I love that too. So to see that in my Sonic game, and to not only have that, but to actually unlock it as an extra on the main Sonic Mania menu, huge plus. That means I can go back and play Mean Bean Machine, not only single player against the AI, but against somebody else on my couch, and it's a best of 3 series, and that is great. Being able to take Mean Bean Machine with me at the same time as a regular flagship classic Sonic game, good shit. I played it through all the way as Sonic, gotten all the emeralds with that. I'm actually planning on going back and doing a Tails playthrough and a Knuckles playthrough as well. But story-wise, there's not too much to talk about this. I've actually heard that Sonic Mania and Sonic Forces are tied together, which I apologize. Well, I don't have anything to apologize. I know that I'm giving Sonic Mania so much praise, and I know, realistically speaking, according to everybody else I've spoken to, I can't say the same for Forces. But Mania, I'm glad we got one winner out of the Sonic team this year, and it wasn't even directly from the Sonic team. It was from a bunch of people that just really, really love Sonic that got hired to work on this. And I think it was probably the best decision that they have made in a long time. Because, historically speaking, they've not made some good decisions, that whole team. Which is why I'm glad they actually brought on people that knew what they were doing, they knew what the community was all about, what they liked. And that being said, they really gave us a polished gem with this one, and I'm going to be playing this one for a very, very, very long time. I've stopped now, but I'll definitely come back to it, for sure. Anyways, on to number 2, and this one's rough, because I had to fight with myself for about 15 minutes. Which of these two is number 2, and which of these two is number 1? They alternate. They alternate on any given day. In this moment, right now, on December 29th of 2017, I will say that the number 2 spot currently goes to Persona 5. And let me start by saying that I love the Persona franchise. I fucking love the Persona franchise. I've been looking forward to 5 for such a stupid long time. For perspective, I have a Persona 3 tattoo. I've played that sucker about 7 to 8 times. Got Persona 3 and 5 merchandise littered around my room as far as the eye can see. And then I think I've even got a little Christmas Elizabeth next to my computer right here. So, Persona franchise, big fan of it. Persona 5, definitely no difference to that whatsoever. Literally got home. I think I did not sleep the night that it came out, since I was playing it nonstop. My entire run-through was probably about... I really took my time with this one, too, because I wanted to explore all the nook and crannies that I could. I think I even did a few money grinding missions, which really kind of clocked up the time a little bit as well. My Persona companion ended up being about 88% by the time I got to the end of it. So New Game Plus is looking pretty nice, I will say. Plus, I started a New Game Plus with about 7.5 million, so I think I'm good to go in that aspect. And on top of that, my actual splash art I'm using right now for the YouTube/Twitch thing is me in the Persona 5 uniform. So I fucking love it. It's fantastic. Music was very stylized to whatever was going on at the time. And let me tell you, the UI is the freshest damn thing I've seen in my life, bar none. There have been no other games I've ever seen that have done, in terms of being able to interact with things. That's actually what the UI stands for, user interface. Good job, me. Anyways, that being said, wonderful, all the way through. A lot of people said it was busy, and those people are people that I don't really talk to anymore, because it was busy, but in a good way. They did not like the way that was all about. Really easy to get spoiled on this game. I think I actually did get spoiled on a very major thing that night as I was attempting to block people. I got the name of the last boss spoiled for me, as well as a major plot point that happens in December. And to say that there is a major plot point in December in Persona is not really as much of a spoiler as it is kind of a universal red flag in every Persona game. Shit always goes down in November to December, since the games usually start in April to May. So to say, oh, you know what, 8 months into the game, chronologically speaking, there's going to be something big that happens, well, damn. You know what? I'm not defending myself for that. To say that something big happens in December, say that water's wet. So that being said, lots to do in this game. If you haven't checked out any of the Persona games at all, I definitely recommend 5. 5 is actually a pretty good starting point. They don't connect to each other, and I'm actually pretty glad for that, since it's pretty easy to recommend 3 on its own, 4 on its own, 5 on its own. In terms of the recent ones, not a lot of people talk about 2 or 1, unfortunately speaking. I haven't played them myself either. I actually started on 3. And 3 to this date still definitely remains my favorite one. So if I had to rank it, we go 3, then 5, then 4, but 3 and 5 probably tie for first. There was just a lot going on with 5. Musically speaking, it was a freaking masterpiece. Plot was pretty good. I enjoyed it more than 4. Not as much as 3, I will say. If I'm to be a little bit critical, I think probably the 4th quarter of the game kind of started to blend together, and it didn't feel like anything stood out to me. So, that being said, that was probably the only mar I can put on this otherwise amazing game that I hold such a high opinion for. It just, that last bit, I think right after what you think is the first last boss, I guess what I would say. You think, okay, you know what, here's the big baddie, he's gone, and then something happens. I'm not going to go too much into detail there. Things happen in video games. It happens. But the direction that the plot takes at that point, it makes sense. I just think it could have been delivered with more poignance and probably had more memorable points, since it really just started to turn into a hot mess, probably in like the last maybe 5 hours of plot. But I think I remember saving it around the 95-hour mark, and I was like, you know what? I don't really know what I'm doing, but I've got a pretty decently powered, I almost said Pokemon, pretty decently powered Personas at this point. So I should just be able to blitz all the way through, and nothing just really held my interest at that point. I just really wanted to see how the story tied in at the end. There was a couple of weird criticisms I had at the end too. I can't really talk about them too much, since I don't want to spoil that kind of nonsense. I don't want to be that guy. It held together at the beginning great, and had a little bit of turbulence on landing, but still a fantastic title. And honestly, the fact that I tie this game right here with my next game, which I actually call my game of the year, is the highest compliments I can give to a game. Especially because, you know, this coming from a franchise that I love and respect so much. This next one actually just kind of shone out to me just a little bit more as of recently, since I started replaying it again. And yes, it actually does have that much replay value. But for, I guess, kind of for different reasons. So, moment you guys have been waiting for, if you're not part of Discord, my #1 game of the year is actually going to go to Nier Automata. This was a game that I had picked up solely based on reviews and preliminary research. And I had not played the previous entry of Nier Automata, which is the original Nier. I do own it, haven't checked it out yet. And I personally do tie this one with Persona for first. But if you said gun to your head, you gotta choose one of these for #2, you gotta choose one of these for #1 right now. Well, personally, I just got done, you know, upgrading all of the rest of the weapons in Nier and a lot of other stuff. And I'm also playing this one through my girlfriend's kind of backseat gaming on this one, since she wanted to experience it, but she didn't want to play through it herself because she's bad at hack and slash. That being said, I was happy to play through it again, and wow, I don't know why the story hit me much harder on this run through. Maybe it's because I was so over leveled and I actually had the opportunity to pay attention to things instead of stress out about combat and collectibles and all that stuff. This was actually bar none the easiest platinum I've gotten on the system as well. Not in terms of time, but in terms of there's a definite point later that makes it a little bit easier to get these things. That being said, first off, all of the protagonists are androids. 2 of them are very cute girls, which huge fan of. Sign me the fuck up for android girls. Always, 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 always. That is probably my one 20 degrees off normal kink that I've got going on. Give me that shit. That being said, I don't really know where else I'm going. I derailed myself thinking about pretty girls. God damn it. Alright, where do I start? There are 5 different main plotline endings. And there's actually 26 different endings, but 21 of them are joke endings that you can get by either not doing a specific thing during a mission, getting a silly game over. Some of the endings are a little bit more important than others. Endings A through E are the ones you actually want to be worried about the most. Since I think A is 2B's run, And then, what is it? I think B is 9S's run. And then this is I guess a slight spoiler, since I don't know whether or not you see her on the cover, but you run into another one by the name of A2, and you do eventually at one point get to play through the story as her. And I believe runs B and C take place concurrently with each other. So I think as you play through, you can choose whether or not you want to play through this chapter as 9S, or you want to play through it as A2, or in some parts 2B as well. That being said, there's also an ending D, which I think is the culmination of all of them together, and ending E, which I believe is the true ending after the last credit sequence. And I think to get to that point, took me... This game got a lot of playtime out of me, I will say. There's a lot to upgrade. There's a lot of different customizations. In fact, the one main thing you can do with yourself is you can give yourself upgrade chips. You can gear yourself towards a more offensive build of Android, a more defensive build, a more, item collecting build. It's very... It reminded me of Mega Man Battle Network 3, the Navi customizer a little bit, but a more linear version of it, where chips took a different amount, or programs they're called chips. They would take a certain amount of space, and it was up to you to figure out how you wanted to arrange them. One of the actual joke endings, you remove your operating chips as well. But in terms of, less about the topics coming off the top of my head, and why I think this game deserves Game of the Year, if not concurrently with Persona 5, and actually a step above Persona 5, the music alone automatically put it in top 5. You could have just said, here's the soundtrack. I want you to listen to this for about a week. Really take it and process it. Let me know what you think of it. It is nothing short of a work of art what the composers have freaking done with this game, musically speaking. Every track from this game I love, honestly. I think it's fantastic, and it's a damn shame it's not on Spotify. And I think I do need to download it to my phone at some point, because it's all very relaxing, very good stuff. The bits that are intense, they're very driven. They give you a sense of purpose in these fights. They definitely know what they're doing with all of their orchestrations and a lot of these things. Visually speaking, it's a very, very, very gorgeous game as well. It technically is a sandbox game in which you have quests you can go do, and it's all on the same map. That's why your load times are so huge. Thankfully, there's teleporting points, and there's also animals you can ride to get from point to point. So one thing that I will say going into this that I can't believe I didn't really discuss too much as well, I kind of have a general disdain for sandbox games where it's open world and you have to explore and accomplish all these objectives and whatnot, which is why people that recommended me Breath of the Wild, and people probably at this point are like, why is Breath of the Wild not anywhere on your list? Honestly, I knew going into it I wasn't going to check it out. I knew as soon as I started seeing shit about Breath of the Wild, and there was one key fact I learned about it, in that the world map was bigger than Red Dead Redemption, Grand Theft Auto, and Grand Theft Auto San Andreas combined. As soon as somebody told me that quip, I said, this game is not for me. And especially as soon as somebody told me, you know what, there are, like 120 shrines, and there's like 900 of these, like, collectible little dudes or some shit like that. I was like, nope, definitely not for me, because these are not going to be marked on any kind of mini-map. I can almost guarantee, and if they are, it's not going to be for quite some time. I don't like... Oh, I think it was with Journey. I think I was describing why I didn't like getting into Journey. But Journey was just like a little forkful of the cake. So I was like, that tastes good. I don't know if I could eat the whole cake. Breath of the Wild, they gave me a 5-tier cake and said, this cake is the best cake ever, and if you don't like it, you're a heathen. Is basically what a lot of my friends were like. And I was like, you know what? Fine. I'm a heathen. I don't like having that much freedom in a game and not having... if you're going to have a sandbox, you got to fill it up appropriately. And I think this game did a good job of doing that. In terms of the world map wasn't that big. And on top of that, the gameplay was actually... engaging enough to the point where if you got into it, you could just immediately start hacking and slashing. If you needed to run, you could run. If you had to go do a specific thing, you could get away from combat, recustomize yourself, do the same thing. I imagine you could probably do the same thing to an extent in Breath of the Wild, but I think the customization in Nier gets a little bit more in-depth in terms of it's not just different chips you're picking different weapons. There's different items you can use in combat that'll have different effects as well. It's by Platinum Games as well, which is the studio behind Bayonetta. So if you have recently played Bayonetta within the past 6 months to a year, you'll notice there are quite a bit of similarities going on. That being said, gameplay was airtight. The combat is very, very, very satisfying. Different weapons have different weights, different ways they attack, different effects on each. I think my only minor complaint is I don't think there was really enough difference between a lot of the weapon abilities. I found many weapons sharing the same ability. If they had a way to make them more distinct and like introduce more weapon abilities, I think that would have been kind of cool. But otherwise, I don't even consider that a major flaw. That's more of a side bullet point I have for it, more weapon difference. With secondary effects. But you got to understand that I'm splitting a hair about 4 times to find a gray core in one like perfectly good hair on this game's head. So outside of that, let me see. Gameplay, we covered music. Length was pretty good. I'm at about, I kind of want to say, I think my current playthrough is about 43, 45 hours right now. And there's very little I have left to do. But there's just a few things that I just want to unlock for myself just for the sake of saying I have unlocked them. And I'm winding down on it. I'm also getting to the point where I've finished ending A again, since my girlfriend's backseat gaming it. And I want to do endings B, C, D, and E while fully maxed out on level and actually be able to appreciate and take in the story again. Since when I play through the credits sequence again, there is a combat sequence during that. And that one gets me misty-eyed every time, which not a lot of other games outside of Last of Us this year did that for me. So it was. I think that's probably the main reason I put this one over Persona 5. Persona 5 made me feel, don't get me wrong, but I think more distinctly in that moment, Nier kind of got me there as a whole, and I think that was with music too. It got a little bit closer to me than I think Persona 5 did. But that's like the difference between like a 98 and like a 96 on a scale out of 100. I don't think any game this year was 100% perfect. I do think there was, however, many games, if they were grades on a report card, I'd be happy to put on the fridge and show to my mom, because 2017 was a great year for gaming. But probably, if you ask me the same question on any given day, probably 6 out of 10 times, I'll tell you that my 2017, that's what I was going for. 2017 Game of the Year was Nier Automata. And the other 4 out of 10 times, I will say it was Persona 5. I also like my games to be a little bit more... I think that was the other thing as well, now that I think about it. Nier Automata, you were constantly doing something. You were very rarely tied down by story bits or story sequences, which made it easier to replay. With Persona 5, as soon as you got into New Game Plus, that's a reason I've also avoided a New Game Plus on Persona 5 as well for a little bit of time. It was still too fresh, and I knew I was just going to skip through it and get fed up with it on my second run through. So now that I've given myself time to forget about it, I'll probably do another run of that game next year. But with Nier, since I was able to jump around and chapter select and everything was hacky and slashy, there was not a lot of story bits that I wasn't immediately able to skip right away. It let me get to where I wanted to in the story, when I wanted to, with little to no inconveniences in that aspect at all. So, I think that's really going to cover it, because I could honestly gush about this game for a while, it being one of the ones I've played the most recently. But in terms of all the games that I have actually played this year, I enjoyed probably around 80 to 85% of them. And of the ones that came out this year, I think every single one that came out this year, outside of probably Pokemon Ultra Sun, admittedly, since that's just a repackaged Pokemon Sun for the most part. I enjoyed. I loved them so much. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was, you know, it was a repeat of Mario Kart 8, but that one, I didn't feel like I got gypped on it too much. Since you're expecting the same thing on it, because there's not much of a story to it. Shantae, I think it had come out, I don't remember if it came out last year or this year, but I still enjoyed it all the same. I think Severed was definitely a this year thing technically, because I don't own a Vita. So that one was fantastic. All of the PS4 games I played outside of the stuff on my top 5, I don't think came out this year except for Kingdom Hearts 0.2. And I enjoyed that 2-hour tech demo, so that was nice. And then everything else I think came out in years prior. So this is basically just an hour of me rambling and saying, hey, you know what? I'm late to a party on a decent amount of games. But the ones that I was on time for, woo, that was some good shit. Anyways, that's about an hour of video, I think. I'm not sure how long it's actually going to be since I don't remember when I started streaming. But I think that's going to do it. If you guys enjoyed this on YouTube, feel free to leave a like. Let me know what you think. Any comments specifically going on there. Those of you guys on Twitch watching this, I'm probably going to end the stream immediately after and go have dinner. And you can hit me up on Discord at that point in time. Those of you checking this out elsewhere, if I plan on uploading it to SoundCloud or anything like that, I haven't really decided anything in terms of what's going on with it. But I knew I wanted to do this, so thank you guys for tuning in. If you did decide to listen for the whole hour. Outside of that, I got nothing else for you except for high faith in 2018, since I'm looking at my Amazon things that are going to bill me for game pre-orders, and I know Shadow of the Colossus and Dragon Ball Fighters are two that I'm immediately remembering off the top of my head that make 2018 a very, very, very steep contender for 2017. So that'll do it, and I will see you guys later. Whoop!